welcome back to Why This Film, the podcast where we reach back into your childhood, pick out a movie, give it a rewatch, and then have a chat about it. I'm Emily Slade, and welcome back. You watched it so many times before, and now you're gonna watch it again. But it's been so many years since you last saw it, and now you show it to your friends, and they're like, What?
What am I watching?
Why this?
What is this?
Why this film? And I am joined today by John and Adam from the Blast from Our Past podcast. Welcome, guys.
Hello, thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely, I'm very excited. And their chosen movie is 1990s, and there may be a bit of dispute on the date here, but I've got 1990s Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles.
The date is not the debate right there. It is totally not called that in America.
Yeah, it's funny. I think they changed it. On the poster, it says Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
That's what we know it as, yes.
Yeah. But the IMDb title up here says Hero Turtles, so I don't know why that is. But the IMDb breakdown is that 4 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles emerge from the shadows to protect New York City from a gang of criminal ninjas. Yes. That's very accurate?
Yeah,
Yep.
That's a very simple log line.
So what's your relationship with this movie? Obviously you guys are brothers. I assumed you grew up together in the same house. What's going on with that?
Well, yes. So we grew up being big fans of the late 80s cartoon, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It is something that probably helped shape our life and it made me become the man I am today. We were huge fans of it. It was a massive series. We had tons of the toys. Nice. I mean, we remember when this movie came out. I remember, John, you've told me before just how ridiculously excited you were when you saw the trailer to this movie.
Cool.
This is the first movie where I can actually remember seeing the trailer on television and getting excited about it. I remember being home, probably alone at the time. I was like 9 or 10. It was a different time then.
Yes, it was.
And watching TV and seeing this trailer for this movie come on, and I was such a huge fan of the cartoon that I could not wait until my family got home in order to tell them, hey, there's going to be a Ninja Turtles movie. Of course, I'm pretty sure our mother couldn't care less.
Yeah, she was a single mom. She had 3 kids and she had to work her butt off. But me, I'm in there like, oh yeah. I'm like 4 or 5 at the time.
That's amazing. Because, of course, I guess in those days, so many years ago, the first sort of knowledge of a movie coming out would be seeing the trailer, either a poster on the side of a bus or a trailer on the TV. How exciting. That's so cool. I was not born when this movie came out, I'm afraid to say, so I didn't have that hype. And I actually watched the 2014 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie. And that is my only... I've never seen the cartoon. I, know of it. If you showed me images from it, I could tell you what it was. I kind of guilty pleasure enjoy the 2014 movie. And if it's, on TV, I will sit down and I will watch it. So I was very excited to come to this one, which I consider more legit.
Yeah, I do as well. I can't remember, John, if you said you've seen it. Is that the Michael Bay one? I believe
I have not seen either of those.
I saw the first one, and it didn't crush my soul, but it definitely blackened it a little bit. It just because I'm so nostalgic for the classic cartoon and for this movie. Yeah.
And even watching it, I could tell I was like, if I were a fan, I think I would think this sucks. Yeah. But I'm not.
So there you go. Well, good for you then.
And I think it's because it's very much the same premise as this movie, actually, the 2014. And I won't talk about the 2014 one for too much more. But it's basically the same story. So I think it was just an introduction for me of these characters and their setup and the whole sort of... I really got it with this movie more so, that sort of parodying Daredevil and Marvel Comics. And there was just something about that I really loved. And so it was really nice to see it. And it is so 90s. It is
the show, this movie, yes.
reaching into a big vat of 90s. I think the first time we see the turtles, they're literally like bodacious, like all these fucking ridiculous 90s slangs. It's brilliant. So did you see it in the cinema then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely
I mean, oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, go ahead, Adam.
I'm sure we did. I was too young to remember it, but I mean, I remember it mostly probably from replaying on TV, but I would be shocked if, knowing how excited we were when we were kids, I'm sure we did see it in the cinema,
Mm-hmm.
in the film theater, sorry. the movie theater, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, whatever you want to call it.
There's a lot of, there was controversy surrounding this movie in terms of Jim Henson thinking it was too violent. I understand that the director himself was actually fired near the end of production because they were worried it would end up too violent. Do you feel that it was too violent when you were kids? Did you find it frightening? Did you find it too much? Did you try and emulate it? Were you then trying to I don't know, I find it really interesting how they always try and blame video games and movies for being too violent, but there were moments that I'll go into later that I was like, Jesus! for a couple of them.
I didn't feel, I don't remember it scarring me as a kid, and even rewatching it now, I certainly didn't find it too violent. Maybe just because I'm 30 years older than I was at the time. Now, did I try to emulate it? Fuck yeah, I tried to emulate it. Honestly, I would say probably even a couple months ago, sometimes you pull socks out of the hamper, and I'm still doing nunchucks with my socks. I do that all the time. That is a thing. You have to emulate this stuff because it's cool.
It was really cool. I imagine it was responsible for sending a lot of children to martial arts classes. If I'd have watched this as a kid, I'd have probably wanted to be a journalist and to do martial arts. Mm-hmm. April O'Neil is such a cool character. Where was her yellow jumpsuit? That's a thing, right?
Yeah, that was a thing in the cartoon. The only thing they did was towards the beginning of the movie when she first gets jumped by those guys who are breaking into her van. She's wearing sort of a yellow overcoat as an homage to the yellow jumpsuit from the cartoon, but I think they didn't. I think they didn't want to go so overt with it, so they didn't really follow that lineage with it.
Yeah, which I'm okay with. I think just giving it that little homage because oh yeah, cool. You want to see April O'Neil in yellow. But we all know it's not practical. That would have dated it even worse than it was already dated. Just being in a full blown bright neon jumpsuit, that would have been pretty bad. Yeah,
that's a very good point, actually. So one of the big things about this movie as well is the puppetry and the animatronics, and they created all 4 turtles in the Jim Henson workshop, and he was very proud of his work on this movie in terms of the progression that they did with the animatronics. They are amazing, and I'm a big fan of practical effects anyway, and especially puppetry, and especially Jim Henson. I found it absolutely wonderful, just watching it for the first time round a couple days ago, to see these puppets working in the real world, as it were, and I believe they shot it in a way where they shot it quite slowly so they could speed it up, and the fight scenes look so legit, and the talking looks so good. Was that something you were aware of as children, as how you were watching 2002's Gollum for the first time, or was it just oh cool, it's the Turtles come to life?
Adam, go ahead.
Sure. No, for me, it not at all. When I was a kid, I was enveloped in this. This was the Turtles come to life. This is something that, got me so excited. I'm seeing these real turtles. And what makes it great is they are real. They are actual puppets and robotics and animatronics. And watching it now, you can see the movements are a little crunchy. They're not perfectly not human, but perfectly not, real of what they're doing. But because they are puppets and animatronics, it still looks so much better in that world.
Yeah. Where
in the 2014 one, there's the shine. There is just a complete lack of any realism with CG that you don't get that same feeling with it. You look like you're watching a really cool animated thing with with the high graphics of today. But back in the day, and watching it now as an adult, my appreciation for the robotics and for the puppetry and Jim Henson and all that kind of stuff is so much higher than honestly. I mean, I love CG artists. I have some good friends who are voice or who are VFX artists and CG artists. I have massive respect for what they do, but it doesn't even come close to the respect I have for the puppetry arts.
Mm-hmm. And is that the same for you?
Oh yeah. You know what? I watched it last night, and at the end, I was like, you know what? I still believe that those are real turtles. And yes, you know, like Adam said, you can see, you know, a little few things here and there, but it's still amazing. And I know as a kid, I had the same reaction as Adam, where it's like, I am living in this world. I could turn around the corner, and Raphael could be right there. I know I could see him.
Yeah.
So it really speaks to what puppetry has done, and I like to think that in the last few years we've started to see a little bit of a renaissance back towards that direction.
Yeah, we've almost gone full circle, haven't
especially
we?
With the Dark Crystal series coming out, and
Yes.
they did that one almost pretty much entirely with puppets. A few, you know, some CG effects here and there, but they really utilize the puppets. And since he is a puppet, and I got to shout it out, Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
Baby Yoda being a puppet, and them sticking to that, it makes it just a little bit more believable. And CG definitely has its place, and you know, where it's warranted to be used, I think it deserves to be used. But nothing can replace something that you can physically reach out and touch.
I completely agree. Gamork will always be scary.
Oh God, yes.
And like anything that was in that 2010 Clash of the Titans.
It also, yes, Gamork, John and I both love Neverending Story as well. And there's an episode that we had talked about earlier in our podcast. That's actually our first episode because we love Neverending Story that much as well. And Gamork, I mean, he's a perfect mix because his movements are so creepy. The way he talks, and then Alan Oppenheimer's voice that he does for Gamork, just like, oh, it makes you poo yourself. Even
Literally. It's so terrifying, and it was really cool in this movie having that same feeling where you were like, that's there. Like you're right, how you say you can just bump into them in the streets.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to, even though I had watched the 2014, I've got a little like key here where I'm like, Raphael, red.
Well, actually, a little bit of turtle history for you. They started off as a comic book from Mirage Comics, like in the early 80s, I think it was. I can't remember exactly. But they didn't have color separation with their different colors. All of them, it was really mostly a black and white comic, except for their masks and like their design colors. Every single one of them, though, wore red back in the day.
Oh.
It wasn't until the late 80s cartoon where they kind of wanted to show some separation of them other than just their weapons. And so they gave them all kind of, you know, the different colors, and probably even, well, the cartoon, they didn't separate their personalities. I don't think it was really until this movie, the 1990 movie, where their personalities really became different, and especially Raph.
Yeah, this is the thing, because I was really trying to keep up, not really knowing anything about them, and I knew from the 2014 one that Michelangelo was like the baby. Like, Mikey was like the baby. And this one,
he's the most immature. Technically, they're all the exact same age, but he is the most immature. Raphael is kind of like the guy with the most attitude. Leonardo's like the calm leader, and Donatello, he does machines. That's but he's the nerd.
I was confused about that because I thought Raphael was the leader, and then I had to Google it, and they were like, "No, Leonardo's the leader," and I was like, "What? I didn't get that for whatever reason."
But it's totally understandable. This movie, though, I mean, just to kind of blurt it out there, is that I think this movie is 100% responsible for Raphael being the favorite turtle for, I think, 90% of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fans out there. Like, I know he is mine.
Is he,
John, if you had to pick a favorite turtle, who would it be?
I mean, out of this movie, it would probably be Raphael.
Yeah, I mean,
I remember being, this is 1990, so I was probably about 9, almost 10 when this came out. I remember going to see this, and the very first line you hear any turtle say. Now, granted, remember, I've just spent like 4 years watching a very sort of childish, very colorful cartoon. The very first line you hear a turtle say is, "Damn."
Damn.
Which is just complete. It was a complete shocker to my 9-year-old brain. Like, oh my God, the turtle's cursed. and it was cool. It was really
it is
cool.
cool.
I was so not expecting it. And it definitely tells you right out of the gate, this is not the same turtles that you just watched, Saturday mornings for the last 4 years. This is something a little
your
bit
daddy's
different.
turtles.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. They did seem. They had this really sweet, because when it first started, I was like, okay, let's do this. Like, it's funny, I have such a thing about gendered movies from my childhood, and the Teenage Mutant Turtles were 100% for boys.
Yeah.
There was never any, and like, I'm wrong, obviously. There were obviously women that would have watched it and women that enjoyed it. Megan Fox herself, who plays April O'Neil in the new ones, was like a big fan, etc., etc. But for me, I was always like, boys. Even in like 2005, when we had like neighbours who were young boys and they had this movie on and I caught a glimpse of it, I was like, ew, a typical boys movie. Which sucks, because it is so freaking cool, for one. And just really, as an adult watching it, they're sort of, what did I say? They're sort of endearing youth. Because they are teenagers.
Yes.
And, like, teenagers can be both cool, like James Dean, and they can still be, like, children.
Right.
And these turtles ride that line so perfectly, where they are super cool, super talented at what they do, super good at what they do, super great morals, but they also, and I know this is so obvious to say, but, like, they're just kicking back and having pizza and, like, bullying each other. And, like, it was just... That really came through in this movie, I found, and it really gave it a heart, and mixed that with the incredible animatronics and puppetry, I didn't find myself swaying too far too often from this movie.
One thing I also think helped with this movie was April O'Neil in the cartoons. She's there, she's a good character, but here they really kind of made her a badass. They gave her attitude. They gave her a purpose. Like, she's going to get this story out, and doesn't, damn any man who gets in her way to do it. And I think it really elevated, because up until then, admittedly, being little boys, don't really care about April O'Neil.
Yeah.
I mean, she was in this show. That was great. That was it. But in this movie, I was like, oh, she's here. This is something different, which is what I really liked about the movie.
Yeah.
Really.
I mean, in the cartoon, she does get relegated to, like, damsel in distress probably too often.
Daphne,
but, in this movie, she is smart. She's capable. She's just fantastic at what she does as a reporter. And it is kind of nice that, she's not the damsel in distress really at all. They have to go rescue their master Splinter, which it makes a lot more sense in them for being teenagers, and kind of wanting to get that, I don't know, their parental figure and all that kind of stuff makes so much more sense.
He's their daddy, and he's so cute.
He is. It is cute. And the way you put it, that the show or this movie does a great job of kind of really pushing. Yes, they are teenagers. I just think about like that early scene when they're kind of like back in their little lair, and Splinter's trying to gather them, and he's trying to have them come together and just sit down like a family. And they're all just doing their ridiculous stuff. They're dancing to the tequila song. They're just like they are just being rambunctious, silly teenagers.
It was really, really cute how you're introduced to them. So April O'Neil is jumped in the street, and because they couldn't afford to shoot another fight scene, they make the lights go out. So the fight scene's in darkness, which is brilliant. So then you see them for the first time coming round the corner in the sewers, and so we've just been like, cool, amazing, like martial arts. They've left their weapon at the crime scene, like, oh, here they are, the Ninja Turtles, and then immediately, we're into like dumb teenage boy shit, which is endearing watching it as an adult, where I'm like, oh, they're just fucking kids, it's so cute. Would you argue that April O'Neil is the main character of this movie?
Ooh.
And if not, who is?
If it's not her, it's Raphael. But I probably lean towards it's April.
I definitely think they're telling the story more through her
than
they are through the turtles, because you're getting a lot of sort of the the plot of who the Foot are and everything else through her, not through them.
Exactly. And you even get that scene when they're out at the farm where she's kind of doing that narration while she's kind of talking. She has the drawings and she does that whole thing. And typically you get that, through your narrator or your lead character. So that totally makes sense that she probably is our protagonist.
Yeah. I just wonder if that sort of is why you were suddenly like, oh, here's like a person, because she's our Luke Skywalker. Because I think, especially for someone like me who like has never read the comics and has never seen the TV show and doesn't really know much about like turtle lore, to come in and then be given Leonardo as my main character, I'd have been like, what? He's a turtle. What? I don't get it. So I think it was a clever move on their part to make April O'Neil, what I would argue, the protagonist, so we can sort of then meet the turtles through her, etc. And as you say, learn all about the antagonists, which was cute, a little bit confusing, but fine. Casey Jones is not an antagonist, right? But like,
correct.
You're meant to think he is at the beginning.
I would say John and I never thought he was, because we knew the character of Casey Jones. He was a vigilante, but he always worked with the turtles.
Right.
But even in this one, they play up that early fight scene as very comical between him and Raphael.
That's true.
And they're on the same side. You can tell. Casey just wants to beat him up a little bit more than Raph does. Raph actually has a little bit more self-control. But so I never really felt that, even though they were fighting each other, I never felt. But granted, I'm looking through this through a guy who's seen this movie, I don't know, freaking 100 times. I mean, I own it on Blu-ray. I love this freaking movie.
Nice. Sorry.
I was just going to say, this is a stupid little anecdote, but there's a line in that fight that I never understood until I was older. And the only reason I'm bringing it up is because I'm talking with someone from Britain. He says the line, cricket, you got to know what a crumpet is to understand cricket.
Yeah.
And as a kid, I knew what neither of those things were.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was much older before I knew that. For the record,
Crumpets.
Love crumpets.
Oh, they are delicious.
Oh my God,
Yes.
They're my favorite thing.
But when Casey smacks him with the cricket bat and you see Raph flying into the trash can, he says 6 runs, which is the cricket score for, basically hitting a homer or a home run, kind of, the equivalent for baseball.
Right.
It's bizarre because neither of these characters are British.
No.
But Casey Jones Casey Jones' shtick is just sports.
Yes.
Everything, all of the stuff he carries is some sort of sports paraphernalia. So it didn't. I think anything that would have had a handle that he could hit with was going to go into his thing, and the cricket bat was going to be one of those things.
Belt. Nice. I think, because he wears the ski mask a la Jason style, and I know that the villain of the Turtles, who I believe is called Shredder.
Yes.
And I know he was voiced by Darth Vader in the TV show, right?
Not exactly. He was voiced by... Oh, John, go ahead.
I was saying, he was voiced by a man named James... Is it James Avery?
Yeah, James Avery.
Oh, I thought it was James
Avery.
Jones.
No, it's James Avery, who was Uncle Phil in...
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
I'm just racist.
No.
Fuck.
He does have a very deep voice, so I could see how you could kind of mistake the two.
I knew it was someone of note from something important that I needed to remember. But because he has some shit covering his face as well, I think when Casey Jones first appeared, I was like, oh, are they doing a teenage Shredder where we're gonna, how they do sometimes where they make all the things babies, and like Pan where they've got a young Hook hanging out with Peter Pan and so for a while I was like, what the fuck's going on? Because also, how old is Casey and how old is April O'Neil? Because aren't they meant to be 16? But in this they look like...
No, they're not meant. 30? They're meant to be adults. So I kind of always considered them late 20s, probably early 30s-ish, in that era. But they're not supposed to be the same age as the Turtles. The Turtles they're the teenagers,
right?
But the other two are adults.
Because obviously those two hook up at the end of the movie, and for a while I was like... And it's the way he acts as well, and the way he is. I was like, Casey Jones is definitely 17, and April O'Neil is pushing 30. This is creeping me out.
I think Casey Jones is... I think Casey Jones is a 17-year-old trapped in a 30-year-old man.
Yes. Yeah.
I would say
Exactly.
that. Which, again, I was like, I get it, because it's 1990, and we had our early 90s feminism, which is all I can really ask for at this time. But I was like, don't get with him. Come on. Like, he's nice enough, but, like, be your own person, April.
True. He is at least human.
That's very true. Does she hook up with the turtles in the show?
No, she doesn't.
It's like a spin-off where they have, like, mutant children. Because they become Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles because of that really, what was meant to be cute and charming, but I found quite creepy flashback with the, like, mixture of puppet and real life tells.
Yeah.
Where Splinter was like, and then some probably toxic waste happened.
Right.
And then they're all like, hello, we're mutating. And it was weird. And their first words were pizza, which is also funny and strange.
But fitting, knowing the Turtles.
Because in the 2014 movie, it's stupid, but it's April O'Neil that saves them and puts them in the sewer. They've been experimented on by her dad, and when the fire breaks out, she saves them and puts them in the sewer. So I was expecting that same backstory here, but it didn't happen.
I think in that one they tried to force interconnectivity with April O'Neil a little too much, where they
it is way
aren't.
too much
Yeah.
for her to have like rescued them as kids. It's like, oh god, it's like fucking if Han Solo had been there at the birth of Luke and Leia, like just on the ship, like my god,
exactly, exactly.
It's way too much.
I think they followed more of the timeline of what happened in the cartoon. Except what is different is in the movie, Splinter was a rat that mutated. In the cartoon, Splinter was a human who was turned into a rat.
Yeah.
Don't ask me how.
I don't know how, but the turtles were about the same. It was basically just them as turtles, and then the ooze got them, and
they kept that the same.
Right.
And it was probably easier just to say, well, let's just, instead of trying to figure out how to make a human a rat, let's just turn a rat into a human since we have to do it with the turtles anyway.
And it does make sense. The only thing that doesn't make sense is he was a rat who was a pet of a martial artist who started mimicking the martial arts moves. I mean, my pets have never done that.
I have to say, I think I cried at Splinter's backstory a little bit. He was adorable.
Yeah.
A little puppet rat. Doing little martial arts in his cage. I was like, wee! Yes. And then his master gets slain by this evil person, and I'm like, no, because he's sad, and I'm sad, and I'm crying. And then the evil person, like, slices his ear off, and he scratches his face, and I was like, I would watch an entire movie of this.
Yeah.
Like, just
intense.
Splinter and his backstory. Like, I really loved it. I think it's because it was a rat and it was adorable. Rather than the creepy turtles being like, pizza, dude! It's like babies.
It's because you were not born in the 80s. You know, in the 80s, that's what it was about pizza and radical and tubular and cowabunga.
I mean,
and neon colors.
I wanted pizza.
Yeah.
Watching this movie, and I loved that conversation he had where like he came down and he was just like, this was what was so charming about this movie. One of them came down and was like, hey, do you ever think about what Splinter just said about how like one day he might not be around anymore? And the other one's like, pizza guy's late.
Yeah.
Getting $3 off in a minute. And you're like, oh, this is great. Like, this is really lovely. I really like this. And then the pizza guy turns up, and that's really funny. But what I loved about it was that the people that were in the suits of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles also got human cameos in the movie. And I'm really glad that I found that out, that I scrolled through IMDb before it got to any of them. So I could be like, oh, Raphael hits the car, and the guy in the car is the guy that's in Raphael.
Yep.
I thought that was really, really lovely.
Yeah.
And Raphael was the only one where the guy in the suit also did the voice.
Yes. Yeah, poor Corey Feldman getting paid $1,500, being told it was going to be a small independent movie, and then it's fucking box office smash Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie.
Corey Feldman's got enough money.
Yeah.
I feel bad
Yeah.
for him.
I think he
He's
blew a
so
lot of his money on coke and hookers. Sorry, Corey.
Oh, Corey. Did you guys spot Sam Rockwell?
Oh yeah.
Oh yes, yeah. I mean, he's one of the bad kids. That's part of
Yeah.
like the Foot. Well, a pre-Foot. He's not a ninja yet, but yeah, he's pretty. I mean, for someone who's turned into such an amazing actor, it's kind of fun seeing him in those roles.
Yeah, in these like really small, almost cameo-sized
Mm-hmm.
teenage, especially roles, where they were in like Pinocchio's Pleasure Island. Like I expected them all to turn into donkeys at
Yeah.
one point. It's just like a bunch of teenage boys smoking and playing snooker, being all like, "Yeah."
I think
My
they were playing
God.
8-ball, but that's okay. You're so British. It's awesome.
Balls, I know.
Adam, you're just making us sound more American.
Yeah, probably. We're pretty obnoxious. Yeah.
I do remember. Seeing that movie for the first time, and that the first time you cut into the inside of that warehouse, and the first thing you see is a young kid who's probably not much older than I was at the time, smoking a cigar. That was the
Yes.
first time I'd ever seen anything like that, and it was a little jarring. I think
But
that was,
Yeah.
I think that hit me
Yeah.
a little bit more than any of the violence ever did.
I was gonna say, damn, if that kid doesn't look cool though. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I can see why people were like, "Oh, this probably isn't good for children." But it was a PG, which is bizarre. When, to go back to the violence, the one bit that I've literally written in my notes, fucking hell, is near the end where they've defeated Shredder, and I'm sure we'll go into that, in a really cool way, and he falls into like what just looks like the garbage.
Yeah.
And then,
It's a
and,
garbage
and,
truck.
and like Splinter says this really like noble thing where he's like, you like will suck because you're a terrible person, nobility, blah 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 blah.
You will not die. You will die without honor. Something like
That's
that.
the one, and it's super like, oh yeah, and then fucking Casey Jones
Yeah.
presses a button like, oops. And crushes him, like crushes him into like the garbage cubes you see on Monsters Inc. I was like, fucking
Yeah.
hell, Casey, that was a person.
Yeah, he probably. I mean, it was probably only 3 stories high or something. It wasn't. It was a fall that someone in like he probably could have survived that. But then Casey was like, screw this. I'm
I will
gonna make.
just
But it's fitting with
crush
Casey,
you.
the Casey that we know before. You know, who is okay with taking it to that uber violence. But yeah, they do have that shot where you see the compactor like crushing the helmet of Shredder. Ooh, it is pretty intense.
Yeah, it gets pretty
I'm like,
dark.
that's where I was like, oh yeah, this movie's violent. Like, yeah, this is bad. Especially because in theory, Casey should have undergone a journey where he's like learnt to be a bit more of a pacifist because he's hanging out with the turtles or whatever, or a bit more noble or whatever because he saved Splinter and learnt his valuable like life lessons. And then he's like, nah, fuck that. Let's just crush this guy in the garbage compactor.
Yeah. It's funny, my wife and I were actually talking about that at the end of the movie because she kind of walked in towards the end of it while I was watching it. And, you know, she kind of mentioned, she's like, you know what, it was very much like the movies in the 80s. You just killed the bad guy. It didn't really matter what it was. And I know this movie, actually, the director, and part of the reason he was fired because he intended it to be a lot darker than it even came out. I know there's a scene somewhere when what is Shredder's main henchman's name?
Tatsu, I think.
Tatsu is angry and he beats up a kid, and you hear in a voiceover, you hear him. They're like, "Okay, he's breathing. He's gonna be okay." They added that later because in the script, Tatsu kills the kid.
Like a child. Like
Yeah,
a child.
like one of the foot soldiers, like one of the teenage foot soldiers. Like in the actual shot, he kills him. Not for real, but I mean, like that's what the intent was. And so then they went in later to ADR it and was like, no, add some stuff to make it sound like he's still alive.
They're like, I'm still okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all right.
Oh my god. I mean, do you want to see the version where that kid dies? Would it have made the stakes higher?
You know what? As a kid, I think it was exactly what I needed it to be, which was enough fun and enough dark to make it, okay, this is not the normal Turtles that I'm used to. This is a little bit more. But they dialed it back. As an adult, I would totally watch like a 8-episode series on Netflix that's like uber adult.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's me now, still loving that property. I don't think they would do it because that it's still marketed to kids. But I would love that now. As a kid, it would have been too much.
Yeah, that's fair. I think you're right. It really does ride that good line of like being darkly enjoyable. Because I think kids should be scared, and I think they should be threatened, but they shouldn't be traumatized.
True.
That's why I became a teacher.
There you go, John. To traumatize them. Yeah.
Loved the penicillin on your pizza joke. Here
Yes.
for it.
That's another joke I didn't get until I was older.
Yes, absolutely. I totally didn't get it, and I was like, "Oh!" I think for years I thought like, "Okay, they're still going to eat the pizza or something like that." And then finally, as an adult, like, "Oh wait, no, it's too moldy." And now they're kind of doing a army send off kind of song thing to it. So
yes, that I've got that on here somewhere. That was so cute. Like, they come back into the house and he picks it up and he's like, "Huh, you like penicillin on your pizza?" Because it's like super moldy, which is like a very clever joke. If I like give that to the Turtles, there you go. It is, and then they could have just left it at that, but like because they're teenagers, because they're kids, they like kneel down and do this like da 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 da, like send off militaries-esque song to this fucking pizza, and I found it so funny and so endearing. I was like, this is great, man. Like these characters, they've just hit on something that's so enjoyable. No wonder the franchise is still going to this day.
And
Go ahead,
sorry, John. For someone who didn't watch the cartoon when you were younger, you may not know how much pizza meant to these characters. Like it is literally almost every toy kind of like came with a slice of pizza, like a little plasticky like thing. That was as much part of the Turtles as their weapons were, as their colored bands were. Like it was Turtles and pizza. Always. I
am aware of the that combination. Like whenever I think of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I probably think of pizza more than I think of like their martial arts weapons.
Okay.
To be honest, but it's never something that's really registered with me in that that's bizarre or that's weird, because it's when it's just in your subconscious that you're just like, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles eat pizza. It's like their shtick. Yeah. But like, seeing it in this movie, they just incorporate it in such adorable ways. When he uses his Electra weapon to, is it Psy? That
yes, the Electra weapon. Yes, it's a pair of Psy. I was like, what? There were no electric weapons. Electra, like the like the Marvel villain / hero.
Jennifer Garner.
Yeah, that's the one. The Psy.
To slice up the pizza, and one of them lands on the rat's head, and he's like, "Ugh." Rat voiced by Elmo. Splinter was voiced by Kevin Clash. He's Elmo, which is really cute. I really enjoyed it. To be honest, I don't know what I was going to think, because I knew I'd seen the 2014 movie, and I knew that I'd enjoyed that, and I was excited to watch it, but I think I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to enjoy it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm really glad. I think what is good about this movie is that at the heart of it, it's really just about family. It's about this family of 4 boys and their father, and what essentially what happens to them. They didn't go out into the world to try to do anything. The world sort of happened to them. They happened to have to save this woman. Things happened to them that brought them in there, and they're trying to keep their family together. And I think at the heart of it, that's really what the movie is about, which is why I think it still works today.
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree.
Aside from some of the really corny jokes and the really outdated clothing and some of the
music as well. Yeah.
But I mean, essentially, if you can get rid of that, it is very nice. I was watching it last night. I went, man, this is really still fun to watch.
Because it places it in that time, doesn't it? Like, we all still love Back to the Future, even though it's, terribly 80s.
Yeah,
the whole point is that it's terribly 80s to distinguish it from being 50s or Westernese. But I think there's nothing wrong, because it's so 90s and it's so clearly stamped in that time of the world. I think that makes it really good, rather than... some stuff is better because it's timeless. A lot of Disney movies are good because it's timeless, but... Also, stuff can be good because They are so in that time, and the Turtles themselves are so 90s characters. They fit in that world so well that you just buy it, and you can just watch it as like how Rick in Casablanca is so 50s.
Yeah.
And you watch it and you're fine with it, and it's timeless classic, even though it's so 50s. Or whatever it's at.
Yeah, the Turtles, they have to stay somewhat 80s and early 90s, because I just can't imagine if you did the Turtles now, which granted the franchise is still going, but if they were like, instead of like radical and bodacious and stuff, if they were saying like, oh, that's so lit and on fleek, it doesn't work for me. That just does not work.
And I don't think stuff now is so fleeting that like, even saying things like lit and woke is already outdated with this new generation of like impatience, whereas everyone knows that like tubular is like a like definitely 90s thing. And they like it's technically so cheesy and corny in places, but it doesn't linger on them enough. So at the end they're like, that's it, because they're doing all these different catchphrases, and then Splinter turns around and he's like, I always liked cowabunga.
Yes.
And like everyone knows that that's what the Turtles says, and they all go, cowabunga, yeah. And I was like, oh god, but I also was just like, this is great.
Oh my god, the little boy in me was just freaking out watching it.
Like, I knew that this was the cheesiest thing, but I was also like, you can have it. I'll let you have it.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. You've earned it.
Yeah.
And this movie earns a lot of really brave things that it does, whether it be crushing the antagonist.
Who still comes back for the sequel, just so you know. So he's not... he did.
Even though they crushed his helmet and whatever, I was like, he'll be back. If I didn't see his literal body, like, crushed, he'll be fine. Off-screen death doesn't count.
Yep.
Also, like, what else are they going to do? Who else is do they have, like, a Batman series of villains, or is it just Shredder?
They have him and Krang. Krang is this brain guy who's in a body. Yeah, he's the pink brain. They also have like who's it, the rat catcher or the rat kind of guy? I can't remember what.
I don't remember.
They've got a couple from the cartoon.
That's not good. Splinter's a rat.
Well, yeah, but they have not as good of a rogues gallery. But I mean, it's mostly Shredder and Krang, and then kind of everyone else.
Yeah, they had that Rhino. Do they have the Rhino?
Bebop and Rocksteady, who they don't make an appearance in the live action ones, or like the trilogy from our youth, as opposed to the 2014 and 17 versions, whichever ones when they came out, because they did come up in the sequel of that one. Instead we got Toka and Reza, which were what were they, John? One was a snapping turtle, and then the other one was I
don't even know what that thing was.
Yeah. It's like a little miniature wolf, I think. Something like that. Aww. But it was kind of like an homage to them. But yeah, so Bebop and Rocksteady, but they were just henchmen, really, of Shredder.
Nice. I didn't get Shredder. I got him. Like, I knew he, like, sliced the ear off the rat, and that was sad, and he was controlling the Foot Clan, which was bad.
As a kid, and even as an adult, the henchman of Tatsu is so much more intense and realistic and intimidating to me than if you did, in the Turtles 2 or whatnot, if they would have gone straight to Bebop and Rocksteady, it would have been too cheesy.
Yeah. That
guy was so scary, and he's still like scary to me today. The guy who slapped April. It's just like, I would never fuck with that man. Never. Yeah. he could be 90 right now. I see him walking down the street. I'm like, oh shit, it's Tatsu. Get out the way.
Yeah. It was good, and it comes back to that, like, enough threat and enough danger, whilst also having enough reliance in the Turtles that they'll be okay.
Yeah.
Because they just, they have this brilliant ability of appearing, and it's really good camera work as well, almost like smoke, like when Raphael's on the roof, and then the camera just, like, slightly turns, and there's suddenly, like, hundreds of them behind him, and you're like, like, I was like that here at 28. Like, I can't imagine if I'd have been 8, I would have been like, it's really great. So anything you want to say, really? And the after credits had a rap, which I am always a fan of.
TURTLE power. I mean, I love this stuff. Power. It's good stuff. It's so good.
It's brilliant.
I appreciate this movie for so many reasons, and we've kind of already talked about those. But one thing that we haven't really brought up is the depth that was added to these characters from this movie that you didn't get with the cartoon. And I never really read the comic, so maybe there was something there. But this film, I mean, obviously with Raphael, that's why I think he became my favorite in the entire series, like he did with a lot of people, because the depth that he had alone was a story that I really loved watching, and I still enjoy watching, and that's why I think it's something that I flat out loved still watching this when I watched it last night as well. It still grips me because I think Raphael is such an interesting character, but not even just him. Like, you see some of the other characters and what they kind of have to go through, and you see their teenage silliness through their sadness of missing, their parental person in Splinter when he's taken and stuff like that, as well as seeing someone like April O'Neil, and just there is a humanity in this movie that you don't get with the cartoon. And if I rewatch the cartoon, it doesn't work for me as much as rewatching this movie, because you get all that realism and that humanity and that depth with everyone in it. That's why I think it works. That's why I think it holds up. And that's why I'm going to keep watching this damn movie until I'm 94, let alone 34.
Yeah.
I think a good movie can speak to you in different ways. Adam and I have talked about this several times, and according to different movies, about how they hit you differently when you're a kid versus when now. And, when I was a kid, I probably thought I was Michelangelo, silly and goofy and like to play pranks and do stuff like that. But now I'm older, I'm a parent, I identify more with Splinter. I see, what he wants for his children, what he's trying to do. And I think that's a mark of good writing, where it can hit you no matter where you are in your life. And I think it may surprise some people that this movie does that, but it did for me. It still hit me. And we talked about it at the beginning when he's trying to sit them down and they're getting around. I'm a dad. That's exactly what my kids do. I'm trying to talk about them, talk about something important with them, and I got to be like, nope, don't. Put your iPad down. No, we're not going to go play it over here. Okay, I need you to focus. Of course, I'm a teacher, and it's exactly what it's like being a teacher as well. But I was surprised at how much I was still identifying with this movie. Even now, even though I've watched it probably once or twice in the last 2 or 3 years, every time I think I'm still surprised how much it still works.
No, that's brilliant points from both of you. Like, I completely agree. Like, I sat down, I think my mum was like, oh, what are you watching this evening? And I was like, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie. And she was like, oh, have fun. And I did.
It's a far cry from watching 12 Angry Men, but it's still a great movie.
Yeah, we did see that. Totally different.
That's the thing. I've got Black Narcissus to watch, and I was like, should I watch Black Narcissus or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles tonight? I know which one's probably going to be more fun. But you're right. It has a heart to it, and it has these, like, the 90s were really good of installing these themes within their movies, and obviously they probably, I can't really remember, it's Michael Bay, but probably not, but like, they don't care about that anymore. They're like, just fucking put some cool like shit in it, get some great shots for the trailer, employ a hot person, done. Whereas back then they were like, no, we need this to make sense. Like, we need it to string together, we need the plot to come together, and we need to have overarching themes and a 3-act structure so it works as a movie. And it does, and you're completely accurate. I'm so happy that the main through line of this was family, and like single parent family, and like found families, and like, April sort of comes on as their sister almost as well, and Casey's there as like a weird cousin who's like 17. And like you really do feel it, and you really do feel their connection, and you're right, it's something that definitely makes this movie timeless. Like 100% it does, and it's really interesting how you'll go from being Baby Mikey to Splinter, and hopefully never Shredder being shredded.
But he looks awesome. I'm not gonna lie. Like from like page to cartoon to live action, I still think that Shredder costume is one of my favorite interpretations. Like they still made it was ceremonial, but it still looked really cool to me. Where a lot of times they look kind of crappy. I thought this one they did a good job.
Yeah. No, it's really cool. I mean, and they make fun of it, but like I did love that when they first fight Shredder, they have that wonderful moment where they're like,
do you use that stuff for making coleslaw? Yeah, I think that's a great line.
It's brilliant. And they're really trying to make light of it. They're like, we like fucking fucked all the other guys up. No worries. Let's go for this guy. And then like one of them gets their ass handed to them. So then he's like, but instead of being like, oh no, this guy's the worst guy we've ever had to fight before, because he clearly is. They're just like, you go next. No, you go next. So let's play rock, paper, scissors for it. And it's that lighthearted tone throughout that even though you know they're in danger and you know like everything's really important and you feel the stakes, you're still like, these guys, look at them messing around. It's really fun. Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on and giving me an excuse to watch Teenage Mutant Hero / Ninja Turtles. I hope you enjoyed rewatching it.
Yes, I'm so glad you enjoyed it more than you thought you did. I was a little apprehensive because when you said you'd never seen it, I was like, ooh, is this going to translate for her? But I'm glad that you found something out of the movie to enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I really do. I have a good way of definitely watching things as if I were a child. But I also just, like, the reason I do this podcast is because I just love kids' movies. Like, there's something in my brain that's like, yay, if it's PG, I love it. Even though, obviously, like, I love A Clockwork Orange, but, like, hey, The Secret of Nim is also up there, so. Yeah.
That's kind of why we started our podcast, just an excuse to go back and watch all those old movies that we hadn't seen in years.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, John and I talk about old movies and stuff all the time, and so we were eventually just like, "You want to record this?" It makes sense. Just makes sense.
Publicly. Completely makes sense. Thank you so much. Do you want to talk about your podcast?
Sure, Adam. Why don't you go ahead? You're the talker of the two of us. So.
Sure, I am the talker. I don't overshadow John on that podcast, definitely not. But I overtalk John on that podcast. I have a bad habit of just cutting him off and whatnot. Maybe it's because I'm the youngest and I didn't feel like I got enough attention when I was younger, and so I'm like I have to butt in.
I call bullshit on that one.
What? No.
Yeah, as the eldest child as well. Sit down.
No, I got all the hand-me-downs and all that kind of stuff,
please.
And John got on
later curfews and less rigid rules.
That's
anyway, so our podcast, as you mentioned, it's called the Blast from Our Past podcast. As of recording this, our 100th episode is just about to drop, so I'm not sure when you'll put this one out there, but we're excited that we've just gotten 100 episodes out there, all talking about everything nostalgia. We started off pretty much just doing movies and TV shows.
Nice.
And then something that we do that's unique is we do fan castings. And so we go back and like we pick a property, whether it is a TV show, a movie, or just something that we want to recast on our own, like because we're kind of comic book nerds or just kind of whatever the heck we want to do. And we'll go back and be like, well, what if they made Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles using actors of today or something like that? And so we'll kind of do recasting of that. And then it's kind of grown into a all-encompassing nostalgia podcast where we do album reviews, as well as we do kind of top 10 lists just for fun and stuff like that. Oh, what's your favorite top 10 80s movie themes? So whatever it is. I'm excited. Hopefully sometime later this year we're going to do our top 10 cereals, like breakfast cereals, Saturday morning cereals. I just want to go buy all the cereal and eat it. But so that's kind of what it's become. And at the absolute worst, it's a way for me to watch movies with my brother and talk to him once a week.
Yeah, amazing. That's brilliant. Where can we find you across all platforms? Instagram, Twitter, Facebook?
You can find the podcast on pretty much any big podcasting venture: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, that sort of thing. On Instagram, if you go on Instagram and search for @BlastPassCast, you can find us there. Also, you can go to Facebook and find us there. Instagram is where we're most at. We're technically on Twitter, but I don't check it, so don't bother with Twitter. So pretty much Instagram or Facebook are the two big places you can find us.
Nice. Amazing. Well, thank you again so much for coming on. Any last thoughts?
I had a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having us.
No, you're welcome.
And I hope we've created a new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan today.
I think you have. I'm genuinely going to seek out the 80s cartoon, like a genuine
Yeah,
one.
go for it. And don't skip on the sequel, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: Secret of the Ooze. It has a vanilla ice rap, and so it's perfectly 90s dated as well. That happens in the movie. It's so good.
Oh my god. I'm literally doing that first thing tomorrow morning. Amazing. You said the magic words. The Scooby-Doo live-action movie rap over the credits is one of my personal favourites. So check that out. Yeah, thank you guys so much for coming on.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
And we'll see you next time on Why This Film. Bye!
We watched the film and we talked about it, but now it's time to say goodbye. We'll be back again with another movie that makes you wanna ask why.